Now, I feel I should start by saying I'm Richard, and I'm a failed industrial construction professional. But let's kick into it. Oh, well, let me start by saying a little bit about Slate. If we have time at the end, I'll tell you a little bit more, and you can obviously all come and ask me anything you like. Working in a software company now, which is backed by a gentleman who might be familiar to you. I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. And we're really focused on trying to create much better decision assistance before, during, and after every action that will happen during industrial construction. But let me get back to the subject. So I was about 2 weeks ago, and I was developing my shiny presentation that was focused on everything I wanted to talk about. And then Martin sent me these. And I read this when I got them. I really read them like this, which is, you know, okay, things you tried to do, but you really screwed up. Tell us how you screwed up, or what idiots on your team screwed up. Was there anything at all you achieved that is even worth talking about today? Okay, so let's kick in. And I guess I've got to see if I can top, what was it, Frederick, 150 million euros? Well, I heard 200 million on a project. I think I could probably top that with what we did. So let's go forward. So let's go back to that. Perspective of great ideas your company's had. Well, just a quick bit about my background. I started life as an architect. I worked for a company called Bovis. Actually, was working on residential housing, trying to find repeatable methods using 3D CAD systems back in the mid-90s. I found this little company, or they found me, thought I could help them, called Revit. I joined those guys at around 2000. And obviously, if you're familiar with Revit, you'll know it's had some success. And I was at Autodesk, where I went on to run the AutoCAD business from a marketing perspective globally, and then the whole of the AEC, architecture and construction globally. So managed to, in that time, be tasked with taking somewhere in the region of 17 different products to market. Few of them succeeded. And then, of course, my time at Katsura, I was there for a couple of years. I do have lawyers at the back if I have a question that deals with anything that could see me get deposed. Otherwise, there's at least one person here I'll redirect the question to who worked there as well. So let's remind ourselves what Katsura was all about.
We won't pave the way for the future of building by repeating history. On the job site, on the factory floor, in the lab, we're examining everything. When it all comes together, it's a thing of beauty. Technology drives every single thing we do. We use the best tools available. And when we can't find what we need, we make it. But it's not just a tool we use or just the product we make. It's how we work. It's how we think, how we move forward, how we build. Technology isn't the end goal. It's how we get there. We're constantly creating, testing, improving, pushing each other to go further, looking at the problems everyone thought were unfixable. Every day is a new opportunity to ask ourselves, how could this be done better, faster, smarter? Always balancing what could change the world tomorrow with what will work in the real world today. So our best ideas aren't ideas at all. They're already here.
All right, wow, I want to work for that company. How cool is that? So what are we trying to do? Well, we're only trying to transform the building industry by embracing a fully integrated model and optimizing every aspect of the building design, material supply, and construction. That's all. So yeah, quite a deep, quite a lot of ambition there in what we were trying to achieve. When I first met Michael Marks, and he just to let you know how the company worked, is like he gave me my first interview. He was the first guy to interview me. I didn't go through a filter. The moment they thought they might want me, he was the first guy I met. Very interesting way of running a company, very inspiring leadership. The guy is a dynamo. I used to call him the Energizer Bunny. Just an incredible guy to work with. And when we looked at what we were trying to achieve, here are some of our core aspirations. Okay, a lot of this is going to sound very repetitive from what you heard from the other presenters. So I actually could say, rather than go through these one by one, I could say that just about everything you heard could mirror a lot of the experiences that we had within Katera. There were some things were a little different. I mean, because there were some areas we were pushing on a little harder, but a lot of stuff we're trying to do. And, so doing all this at the same time, very quickly, growing from a team of 50 to, I think it was up to nearly 9,000 in under 5 years. What could possibly go wrong if you're trying to cram that much enthusiasm and technology, into what you're trying to execute? So let's take a look at that. Oh, hold on. What's going on? Oh no. Okay, I'm kidding. Yes, when you try to do a lot of things, things can go badly. Okay, so my area of the company, as Martin said, was focusing around this developing software. And we had this idea about earlier persistent and actionable data. And one of the ways we were trying to do that was by really doing basically a rip and replace of all the software stacks across the 18 plus companies that we'd acquired to pull together to execute this idea of transforming the building industry. Very difficult. Every cultural experience that you heard in the previous presentations happened to us. Everything, there was a challenge in meeting the expectations of individual users at the pace at which you're trying to change and understand how to transform the whole process that you're working within. Those are all things that we had to live with and deal with. I love this quote. And obviously I'm not going to say it, you can read it yourself. I think the truth of the matter is that when you look at what all three of the organizations you've heard about today were trying to do, even though there's, I think it's almost like 10 years between each, it's very familiar to me in what I've had to do in trying to bring technology to market. And there's ways that you can look at this that have been very well documented. This is called the Dunning-Kruger effect curve, where you look at confidence against competence in the context of maybe an idea, a technology, a company, a transformation that you're trying to achieve. And I would be shocked if there isn't if the most of you in this room haven't been a little bit on this roller coaster at some point in the company you're in. I actually love this way. Another way of looking at the peak of inflated expectations is to call it the peak of Matt Stupid. Now, that doesn't mean to say every idea is stupid, but what you can do is you can not be honest and authentic with yourself about what it is, where you are actually in the process. Now, sometimes that means you did a $200 million project instead of $10, $20 million projects. Sometimes that means your investment curve wasn't matching your execution curve. And I would just give you a little bit of an example of how some of this might work. Oh, just in case you're interested in looking further into this to kind of sort of see from a component point of view, how this kind of hype cycle works. Gartner took that curve and looked at this as a way of describing maybe what happens as you go through this roller coaster. I look at everything in that big red circle and it feels very familiar to what I experienced, not only in the company that you're interested in hearing about, but I would say every company I've worked in that's trying to go through this evolution. Is there anyone here familiar with chasm theory, Geoffrey Moore's chasm theory? If you overlay it on chasm, this isn't exact, but you can see that's why this kind of stuff happens. And this idea that the early adopters and tech enthusiasts get very, very excited. And that can include people who are going to invest in technologies because people want to get in early. And quite often happens as you get through those early visionaries, you get into the chasm. And this is where things can start to go badly wrong. If you overlay a cash flow that maybe an investor or your company is trying to invest in to get you through this evolution, you're obviously going below zero for quite a period. And every investment company and every company in the world has its own version of this curve and how they expect to travel through cash flow. But typically, as you get into the early majority, you're expecting to go into profitability. I can tell you, it's like in Katera, where everyone's very confident about this curve. There's really no doubt. Of course, Occasionally, things like global pandemics happen. Other factors happen, maybe even a series of projects or a series of technologies didn't advance as quickly as you think they might. Lots of things can affect your ability to hit these targets. And I'm not here to comment about the financial side of what happened in Katerra, and really, I'm the wrong guy to talk about it. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of see how you think about it as a technologist and how you might think about planning to go through this. All of this is obviously available for you to look at. If you have never read Geoffrey Moore, I would definitely say look at Crossing the Chasm. It's something that's I found useful throughout my career, just to understand how you move forward. So, assessment of what your former companies should have done differently. Well, about an hour ago, I was speaking with one of the co-founders, Michael Marks, who incidentally is my boss now, when it tells you who's behind the company I'm in now. And I said, what can I say about what happened? And Janet's laughing because she had dinner with him last night, I think, and he said exactly the same thing to her. Everyone says we did too much, but when we analyze what happened, we probably didn't do enough. Now, a true entrepreneur would often take that view of looking at, how to tackle the problem. And when you're as good at raising money as the founders were in Katerra, and there was on that hype curve as much enthusiasm for what we could achieve, this could be the right approach. That I'm not, so there's lawyers are telling me, I am not recommending that you do what happened in Katerra, but nor am I saying it was a bad thing. I think when we look at the successes we had and the things that we did to move I would say even the industry forward, with the employees that have now left Katerra and now creeping into all the other companies, that I think it's having a profound effect downstream. Rip and replace is really hard, really, really hard. I guess we knew this, but we tried it anyway, from a technology point of view. I would say that one of the things that really came through as a learning was that most of the software we use within organizations is about constraining us to stay on the original plan, to stay on the original budget. Now, almost in every other facet of life and in any other industry that you work in, this idea of continual innovation and agile methodology is the way that people try to execute now. Yet once we've got a building program and once we've got a budget, I won't mention the products that you might be using, but you all know what they are, is they're all really around this idea is that if there's going to be an incident, a change, an issue, make it really hard for that change to impact the original program and budget. Now, the interesting thing that happens when you do that is you also lose all the opportunities to change to make the original budget and program better. And I think that was something we observed and found really early on when we were looking at technology. Easy analogy I can give you is that, driving in the, say, 1980s, that you'd probably be driving along with a paper map on your lap. You're looking out of the front of the car. You probably got the radio on, DJs, spinning records, and you're hoping at some point he's going to tell you if there's a traffic jam ahead or there's been an accident. And that's all you have to know about how you're executing as you're moving forward. Pretty much like having a drawing on a construction site. You got that, all you can see is what's directly in front of you. Now, what your solution should be doing for you is acting a little bit more like a modern GPS, like a Waze, which is saying, hey, I think it's highly likely that there's going to be traffic ahead because for the past 10 days, there's always been traffic at this time of the day, and you should turn left here and take a different route. Now, it's not saying you have to, but it's implying that there's an opportunity to improve the position you're in for a better outcome. So when I think about what I'm working on now and what I think we've learned is that we need to look for solutions that do more of that. I guess some lasting legacies, apart from the people, I would say that one thing we also learned was design for constructability is way more important than design for manufacturing. Now, that doesn't mean DFMA isn't very important, but I think I use this idea that the entire process should be seen like your factory floor. Martin actually shared a presentation with me, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, which I've always found very inspiring when they instrumented a building during construction here, and they put cameras on the bays. to observe how much activity per bay happened during, I think it was an 18-month contract. Yeah. And I hope I get the statistics right. And they found over 18 months, the average activity per bay was less than 3% or around 3%. So that meant nothing was happening in those bays for 97% of the time during the construction of that building. Imagine if I was the factory manager working for Elon Musk, and he says, hey, what productivity per square foot are we getting out of our factories? And I go, 3%. Now, I'm not suggesting we should be getting up to 70, 80, 90, but what if we made that 6? What if we made it 9? What if we looked at the whole process and everything as a factory floor? How would we re-examine it? So when I think one of the legacies that's come out of this is that we need to rethink even how we look at the problem we're trying to address. And I try to say, never say in my presentations AI or machine learning, although I just did. I think there's a new set of machines that we need in the industry, and it just so happens that those are computational machines. It just so happens that they understand data and context without decision bias, and once they've done that, they can actually give us insights about things we wouldn't be aware of. I think in a robotics session, you heard a lot about how robots are now going to be able to capture things all the time, but a lot of the focus from solutions in the market right now are about trying to use reality to compare with plan. But there's much more than that going on. There's much more than that going on. There's a fantastic study which I urge you to look at called The Invisible Gorilla. And I'm not going to prime you because you should go find a video on YouTube and take the test as it asks you to do. And it's all about this thing called inattentional blindness and change blindness, which is when things change slowly, you don't see the change. And often you don't see anything outside of your target of concentration, because human beings have evolved over millennia to ignore anything that won't hurt them. And that comes into our everyday life. So if it's a saber-toothed tiger, you're definitely going to see it, yeah? And at the corner of your eye. But if it's a tree, you probably never saw it was there. Same thing happens on construction sites. The same thing happens in every aspect of what we do to kind of produce a building during building production. And this is how we should be thinking about information and data and AI and the possibilities, not just about making our existing workflows work a little bit better than they did before. So lots of opportunities there. So just to close, I love this quote. I think it kind of speaks a lot to both where I think we are in the industry and as software providers, and also where the opportunity is. I kind of think if we're not in the last 5 minutes, we're pretty close to being there. I think we're in the phase of execution, not the phase of understanding. And what I mean by that is that I think we can all agree the things that we need to do, but execution is the issue. So I think I'll stop there because I know we're pressed for time, but thanks very much for inviting me here today. Happy to speak to anyone further about any of these things. Thanks.